Merry Christmas, everyone, especially the Jacksonville Jaguars, just now trading for Jakobi Meyers, as I'm about to talk about Parker Washington in the waiver wire video. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the top wide receiver ads. Troy Franklin, he's out-targeted Courtland Sutton in 5 out of 9 games. Sutton and Franklin are kind of a mirror image of each other. When you look at Franklin, he's got 62 targets. Meanwhile, you've got Sutton with 61 targets. Franklin's got 37 receptions. Sutton's got 38 receptions. Both Franklin and Sutton each have 4 touchdowns. Sutton has nearly 200 more yards, but Franklin does have 7 end zone targets, while Sutton only has 3. Franklin is their go-to guy once they get into the end zone, especially into the red zone, because Franklin has 12 targets in the red zone and Sutton has 6 targets. Now, I'd much rather have Sutton, but I do think we're undervaluing Troy Franklin in this offense. Now, let's talk about Parker Washington and the Jacksonville Jaguars. They just acquired Jakobi Meyers for a pick. Now, is he going to play this week? Is he not? Either way, it doesn't really matter. This is pointing at a little bit more of Travis Hunter is probably going to be out for possibly the long haul, or possibly Brian Thomas Jr.'s injury is a little bit more than we expected when he injured his ankle late in week 9. Now, Washington, he just came off his second best game as a pro. As the second target in that offense, I mean, he was incredible. Right now, I'm considering Washington more as like a situational flex or maybe even a strong flex, depending on how Jakobi Meyers actually gets worked into the offense. Now, Alec Pierce, we got to talk about him as well. If you want to have him over Parker Washington or Christian Watson over Parker Washington because of the Jakobi Meyers news, be my guest. That's perfectly fine as well. But Alec Pierce had 13 targets, ended up with 6 receptions for 115 yards in week 9. Just 2 weeks ago in week 7, he had 10 targets, went 5 for 98. He looks more and more like a big play receiver that you can kind of rely on now. He's got 45 targets with no touchdowns. That's pretty impressive. That's kind of hard to do. He's a flex wide receiver with big upside. And Christian Watson, again, a big, deep threat for Jordan Love. Ran the second most routes for the Packers, only behind Romeo Doubs. He could see more targets in this offense with Tucker Kraft going down for the season. We got to remember that Tucker Kraft did have a 17% target share. And Torrey Horton, Cooper Kupp was inactive as of week 9. That gave Horton a huge boost in the offense and gave him his best day as a pro. 4 targets, caught them all, 48 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Horton only ran 3 less routes than JSN. And we see it oftentimes. Rookies come out, have a better... We see it all the time. Every single season, there are rookie wide receivers who do better in the second half as they get more acclimated into the offense, into the NFL. Now, hopefully the coaching staff takes note of this, so when Cooper Kupp does come back to the field, Torrey Horton is going to be getting more looks. And it's nice to see them do this right after the bye as well. Now let's talk about the must-add running backs. If for whatever reason there is some weird trade or something like that happens and the starter moves away, grab the backup, okay? That should be self-explanatory. But all these guys here are for running backs. I'm going to kind of blitz through them because they're mostly all handcuffs. None of them really have standalone value. I've only got these 5 running backs, but if you wanted to add any Cardinals running back to this, it's going to be a messy backfield. Trey Benson could return in week 10. Amari DeMarcado looked like the best running back against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, while Bam Knight got the start. So it's a very messy backfield. We know that. We knew when Michael Carter was getting first-team reps on Thursday and Friday and they did absolutely nothing on Monday. That's a huge red flag. But let's talk about Tank Bigsby and Dylan Sampson. Now, both these guys are stashes. We saw Saquon Barkley and Quinshon Judkins get injured in week 8 before they went into the bye. Now, we don't know their status for week 10, so that'll be something to monitor. But if you have either Barkley or Quinshon Judkins, or you're going against them, maybe you want to play a little defense, I would be grabbing the backups for each one of those guys. Right now, Josh Jacobs does not look like he's 100%. He's still dealing with a little bit of injury. He's played less than 60% of the snaps in each last 3 games. Josh Jacobs is usually above that number. And it's not to say that Josh Jacobs is going to miss any time, but your insurance policy is Emmanuel Wilson. So if you want to grab him, that makes a lot of sense. And Blake Corum, he gets all of the garbage time carries. He's getting worked in the offense when the game's actually competitive as well. But 12 carries in week 7, 13 carries in week 9 in their blowout win yet again. He's one of the few players that is the clear backup if the starter is to miss time. And that seems like the same thing with Brian Robinson Jr. as well. I've held on to him all season long because I know Christian McCaffrey is not a moniker for health, but also every 49ers running back has been extremely valuable when they are the starter. Now let's talk about tight ends here a little bit. In week 10, Harold Fannin, he was dropped in a lot of leagues because he was going on bye. That makes a lot of sense. Since Dylan Gabriel has taken over, Fannin has been the target leader for the Browns. He's actually second most targets among all tight ends during that time. since week 5. He's very serviceable tight end. If you want to go with him as number 1, that's perfectly fine. If you want to go with this next guy, who is drafted 10th overall and looked like a stud in week 9, Colston Loveland. He's available in about 3/4 of leagues. He had a monster game in week 9. Everyone saw the game-winning play by now, so I don't need to reiterate that. But it was the easiest matchup for tight ends, which is what I mentioned in last week's waiver wire video on why you should have picked him up. Also in my tight ends ranking video. It is a much harder matchup in week 10, but he's playing 80% of the snaps in both of these last 2 games, so stay tuned later in the week. Check out my rankings, see where I have Colston Loveland ranked, but if nothing else, he should be picked up. Hey Otten, he's had 4 catches and 40 yards in 4 consecutive games. If Godwin misses, we can expect Otten to still have an uptick in work versus the Patriots, who aren't great against the tight end position. Now Theo Johnson, since week 4, when Jackson Dart took over, only Devontae Adams, Jake Ferguson, and Dallas Goedert have more receiving touchdowns than Theo Johnson. Johnson faces a weak tight end defense for the rest of the season. And Dalton Schultz, it's funny, there were 1 week that we really wanted to play him when Nico Collins was out. He ended up giving us a dud, but outside of that week, when Nico Collins has been in the lineup each and every single week, he's been exceptional. And Schultz plays the Jags in week 10, and they're the second easiest matchup for tight ends. Now let's talk about some streaming quarterbacks. If Flacco happens to be out there, and he's going to be dropped in some leagues because he's just rostered over 50% of leagues, so I didn't mention him. But if he's available, you should definitely pick him up. He's going into the bye, so you'd have to hold 2 quarterbacks. But he is a must-add if he is available out there. But if not, let's look at some of the other guys. Sam Darnold, he's rostered in about half of leagues. Looked incredible on Sunday Night Football, nearly perfect. He's been good or great in 6 out of his 8 games this season. It's not the best rest of season schedule, but he's been serviceable in bad matchups as well. Sam Darnold faced the Cardinals earlier this season. He went almost 250 yards and a touchdown. He was quarterback 18 on the week. This time, they'll be playing in Seattle. And J.J. McCarthy, he still hasn't thrown for 160 yards in any of his 3 starts. The Ravens matchup could change that. They play the Ravens this week, and quarterbacks against them average 260 passing yards per game. And Justin Fields, now this is assuming he's the starter in week 10. It's a tough matchup versus the Browns. Could be getting Garrett Wilson back, but with Justin Fields, we've talked about it all season. He's either giving you 5 points or he's giving you 25 points. So if you're okay with the very low floor or the pretty decent ceiling, then you can go with Justin Fields. It's not a great matchup for me personally. I wouldn't be rolling the dice, but I know a lot of people are looking for other matchups in the future. Justin Fields could be serviceable for that as well. Michael Penix Jr. versus the Colts. Now, this game is in Berlin. The Colts are middle of the pack versus quarterbacks. Penix has actually been better in these last 4 starts. He's coming off his second best game of the season, and this is a 48.5 point over-under. The Colts are a big part of that because they put up a lot of points. And Tua, this one right here is strictly in much, much deeper leagues, but it's a 50.5 point over-under. It's a bad matchup. We just saw the Bills defense shut down Patrick Mahomes. I think he had like a 44% completion percentage, something like that. And let's talk about some of the streaming defenses. I like the Browns versus the Jets. I also like the Jets versus the Browns. Either one of these defenses I think will be perfectly fine for you this week. Now, I do prefer the Browns because they are a better defense. I talked about Justin Fields and how he's wildly inconsistent. The Browns defense is really strong. I mean, coming out of the bye, they'll be ready. The Jets defense is in play as well versus Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel has only thrown for 200+ yards in 1 of his 4 starts. They might also be without Quinshon Judkins in week 10. And the Ravens versus the Vikings, I talked about J.J. McCarthy not throwing for a lot of yards, so if he continues to do that, that's always good for a defense. Now, McCarthy's turned the ball over 5 times in 3 games. John Harbaugh as well is 26-7 versus rookie quarterbacks. And this one might be a little surprising for some people, but the Falcons versus the Colts. Right now, the Colts are a very strong offense, and this is ideally a deeper league play only. But Daniel Jones and the Colts looked human in week 9. I believe a big part of that was the blitzing defense that the Steelers brought. The Steelers, they rush at the 3rd most rate in the NFL. They sacked Daniel Jones for a season high 5 times, and he's been one of the least sacked quarterbacks, hinting why he's been very good on the season. Now, the Falcons, they blitz at an even higher rate. They're the 2nd highest rate in the entire NFL. We could see another meltdown for the Colts, but if you're in a deep league and wanting to gamble on the international game, be my guest. And the Panthers versus the Saints, rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck should not scare anyone. Alvin Kamara has been pretty bad on the ground this season. He's had 31 or less rushing yards in 5 consecutive games. I'm curious of how high the Panthers will rank in my rankings this week. My rest of season rankings are already out, so if you want to check that out, the link is in the bio. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube. I go live each and every single day. The ranking videos will come out Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.